like 25 around
26.
26. चलो ठीक है बाकी आते रहेंगे and we can just start right now. So yeah, and I think I have it on record. Do I have it on record? Yeah, I think it's recording.
जी से रिकॉर्ड हो रहा है.
Hello, great. All right, let's start. So now you can see my Nuke interface. I've got Nuke open right here. And you guys are already familiar with Nuke's basic interface and how things go from here. But I'm still going to start from scratch just to give you guys a revision of what we've been through throughout the semester regarding the software. So right here is where your nodes go. This is like your node space where you're going to be working on different functions and nodes that you'll be connecting to each other to create your composited shot. And up here is the preview window for the shot that you're making down here. Whatever's going into your viewer, this viewer node right here that shows up by default is represented up here. So on the left here are these buttons that you can call different functions from and different nodes. But there's another way, a shorter way of doing it is hitting tab on the keyboard. And yeah, here you can type in whatever node you need. For example, if I want to read a file in, I can type that in. And it's going to give me the options there. And I can pick the appropriate one. What the purpose of today's demonstration is to basically get to this point right here that I'm going to show you. I was working on the shot last night, and I got it to work pretty okay, actually, considering the kind of system I have right now. And so this will kind of be the benchmark for today. So this here's a little shot. Can you see this? Can you see this window?
No sir.
You can't see the other window, huh? You can only see Nuke.
Yes.
Is that it? Chalo khair hai, I'll open that shot in Nuke. Just give me a minute. Let me just get a quick render of this 2 to 3
Also,
seconds.
sir, Nuke के सॉफ्टवेयर के ऊपर like this, I don't know, आपकी कॉल का भी आ रहा है थोड़ा सा. I can't like explain, but it's like white to Nuke software इतना समझ नहीं आ रहा.
क्या मतलब समझ नहीं आ रहा? Can't you see the whole screen here? अच्छा एक काम
Like
करता हूँ फिर.
I
Let
can
me
also
present
like it's mixing with the desktop of the computer, I think, क्योंकि उसमें Google Chrome भी आ रहा है और Animation 3D Classroom भी आ रहा है. I don't know why.
Okay, let me try presenting my whole screen then. Hold on. Okay, you should be able to see my the full screen of my computer now. Do you see it?
Yes, sir.
Acha. Now, is it better?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to import a video in here real quick by hitting tab on the keyboard, typing read, which is equivalent to import, and finding the sequence right here. Is this a sequence? Yeah, it's a sequence. All right. And I'm going to quickly connect this node, which is my read node, which is reading that sequence of images that I've imported just now. And I'm going to drag this little arrow and connect to the viewer so that I can see it up here. Because this here is what you've got in the viewer right here. Whatever goes in the viewer is being output over here. So this is what I have. Let's just play this and see what we've got. Okay? I hope you guys can clearly see the image here because my resolution isn't that great on this laptop. It's not even full HD, I think. It's 1900 something, I guess. Can you see it better now? So this is what we're going to get to eventually. And
की स्क्रीन नहीं नजर आ रही.
स्क्रीन नहीं नजर आ रही. कितना नजर आ रहा है? हेलो,
नजर आ रही है.
नजर आ रही है ना? जिसको नहीं आ रही, can you make sure you're not in the wrong window? क्योंकि Google के अंदर I think you have to click on the image once जो site पे आ रहा होता है webcam का. Anyway, so this is what we're going to try to get to, okay? Using the source footage or plate that I downloaded from YouTube. And there's a couple of shots in there, and we're going to try to do at least more than one shots. so that we can kind of have a cut going between them and have them seamlessly cut between each other as well, not just work on a single shot. And it's fairly easy to do the rest of the shots once you've got the first shot nailed down, because then it's just following the same steps you've done in the first shot for the rest of the shots. So it's easier that way. So anyway, this is eventually what we're going to have to get to. For now, I'm just going to delete this node, and I'm going to read in the source footage. So hit tab on the keyboard, type read, and find that source footage that I had saved here somewhere. Let me see if I folder there, right here. Online course, 3rd year technique demo, and resources, green screen raw footage. Okay, so I just imported that raw footage right here. I'm gonna hit one. By the way, there's another shortcut to quickly connecting whatever node you've got selected to the viewer. If I've got a certain node selected on my keyboard, these numbers you see up top, your alphabets, ये जो लिखे हुए ना keyboard के ऊपर जो numbers आ रहे हैं, there's the numerical pad on the right, and then there's the other numbers on the top side, right? So if you hit 1, 2, and 3 by hitting a node, select the node first and hit 1 on the keyboard, which is also your exclamation mark. It'll automatically connect that node directly to the viewer and mark that as 1. So every time I hit 1 on the keyboard, I'll switch to that node and how it's being transferred into the viewer node. Similarly, if I've got another read node here, if I hit another read node by hitting tab, type read in there, and I bring some random image in, maybe go back into this drive. Where'd it go? Yeah, I'll just pick a random image. Perhaps this one. Okay, and if I select that one and hit 2 on the keyboard, it's going to automatically connect that node to the viewer and mark it as 2. So now I can switch between these two outputs by hitting 1 and 2 on the keyboard, because those are the two inputs going into the viewer node right here. Okay, so that can be really handy when you're switching between two different images to work with them in comparison to each other. So yeah, I can hit delete on this node right here because I don't need it, and hit 1 again on the keyboard to bring that other node up, going into the 1 arrow here. So now that I have that, we can start working on the footage. Let's play it once, because I think it has multiple shots in there, and we're only going to need 1 for now. So I'm going to take the same shot right here, and yeah, I think the duration is the same as last time, which is frame 1 to 163. And you want to do one more thing, is select the raw footage that you've got selected, and if you want to see its further properties, you want to figure out what its resolution is, what its frame rate is, you can right click on that node, and here in the metadata drop-down menu, you can click on view metadata, and you'll get another node underneath it, which is view metadata. If you double click on that, you'll see all the information regarding that footage you're using. So I can already see that it's in a .move format, which is usually the format Nuke likes to convert every footage into before importing it in. That's the way Nuke reads the footage. It's always in a move format. Even when you're getting a video output, it's always in a move format. Then you have to convert it later, which is why we get image sequences, so that we can bring it into other formats. So yeah, and it's 720 by 1280. So I'm going to make sure my project settings are the same. So I'm going to go into edit, project settings, and there's a shortcut as well. You can just hit S on the keyboard to bring up your project settings. So on the right, I can see my project settings now, and it starts at frame 1, ends at frame 163, which is exactly what I want. It's at 24 frames per second. Let's make sure the frame rate is right. And right here, it says it's at 29.97. So I'm going to have to change that. I'm going to change my 24 frames per second to 29.97. Now that I've got that, I want to figure out its resolution as well. So that's 1280 720. Hit S on the keyboard again to bring your project settings. And right here, you'll get a bunch of these presets for resolutions. One of them should be 1280 by 720. So there we go. So now that we have everything in order, 1280 by 720, everything's fine. Everything matches perfectly. Let's just quickly save this file, and then we can begin compositing it. So go to NCA, online, 3rd year, new demo, call this. Yeah, that should be all right. Save that. Okay, now we can start working on the footage. So first things first, what I want to do is I want to key out the green area, okay? I want to isolate the girl in the image. so I can start adding a background. But before that, I want to bring in a background, and I'll bring in a suitable background. I've got a bunch of them right here, and let's go through them and see the different options that we have for our background. So go into resources here. I've got a couple of images here. So I was thinking we could use this one because it's pretty high res, this one. The rest of them aren't that high res and not as interesting. This was good, but it's very low res. And yeah, not as realistic as I would have liked. This one is okay. We can use this one. This one has kind of like even lighting going on. It has a very prominent lighting in the sense that we can figure out how to light our character better. So yeah, let's bring that in. I can also just drag and drop whatever it is I want to use with the Nuke directly, just like in any other software. And it's automatically going to convert that into a read node and start reading from it. So now that I have the background, okay, fine. So now that I have the background, I want to connect these two. And I'm just going to hit 2 on the keyboard with the background node selected and see what the imagery is like. So yeah, I can see there's a lot of highlights and dark points. Overall, the imagery is dimly lit, but there's a lot of source lights that can help bring out the dynamic nature of our composited shot that we're going to have eventually. So yeah, I'm going to go back, hit 1, and now I'm going to start green screening, keying out the green screen on this footage. For that, I'll select the last node. You want to make sure that your nodes are in the exact order. Otherwise, the functions may not come out as you would expect. So yeah, because all of this works on algorithms, like node-based flowchart algorithms and stuff. So you want to make sure your logic in those algorithms is in the right order. Otherwise, it's not going to work out well for you. So now that I have my last node selected, right before the viewer node, I can hit tab and enter. I think it's called a key light. Yeah, key light. There we go. And it's going to take you a while to memorize all their names, but yeah, it's always good to have them memorized so that it's faster to recall. So anyway, I'm in key light now, and here I can start keying out the green area. So what I'll do is, you see this little black box right here? This is where you pick the color in your image. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to hold Control and Shift on the keyboard at the same time and drag the little box, a selection box of sorts, and yeah, pick out the best range of green there. In fact, I'm going to go looking for a middle shade of green, mid-tone. So this is going to be okay for me, I guess. So yeah, make sure you don't take too much of the area. So yeah, now that I've got that, because what it does is basically this little box here is going to take all the colors within it and kind of give you an average of that. And based on that, it's going to give this thing the value that it needs. So yeah, now that we have that, you can see there's a lot of haziness around the character, and there's a lot of weird artifacts going on. So obviously we're going to have to go in and clean this up. To do that, I'm going to switch from the view from final result to screen matte, so I can see everything in like a grayscale, like pure black and white. And I want to make sure my solid objects are as white, and everything else that is not supposed to be there, that is negative space, has to be as black as possible. So I'm going to start working on that. I'm going to drag this here so I can get more of the slider here. And now I'm going to start working on this imagery. So yeah, this seems okay for now. And I'm going to move about in my timeline and see what's going on with the imagery, because there's very harsh shadows being cast on the green screen backdrop. So I'm going to have to be wary of that. So yeah, try to get the best possible values. So that is a little better. And yeah, I think this is good enough for now, because there's one more thing I want to do. I want to isolate the girl out from the rest of the background, okay? So I'm just going to hit D on the keyboard. If you want to disable any node in your workspace, you can select that particular node and hit D on the keyboard, and it'll disable that node temporarily. And you can always bring it back by hitting D again, okay? So I just disabled my key light because there's one thing I want to do. I want to add a roto node, a rotoscoping node. It's called a roto. And I've got my roto node right there. And inside of that roto node, there's a root folder. Now, whatever shape you make will be stored inside of this root folder individually. For instance, if I want to make a rectangle around the girl that separates her out from the background, I can go in here find the rectangle shape and draw a rectangle around her like that. In fact, I'm going to move them around as well and make it like center the rectangle on the girl so that she's got even space around her. And yeah, now that we have that, so that's my roto background roto node that I just used, but it's not taking effect in the image yet. That's because I've got my key light disabled. Not just that, if I bring my key light settings back to its source image, so that's my source. So this is what my image is supposed to look like, and this here's the roto alpha node where I've drawn the rectangle shape, and now I want to connect that rectangle shape to the key light so that we can kind of get rid of everything around the rectangle and keep everything within it. For that, you have to choose the output mask arrow here in your key light node. Make sure it's output mask because you want to get rid of everything outside of the mask. So take the output mask node, out mask, and attach that to your roto alpha like that. And if I go back into key light and if I hit final result, go into roto alpha. Oh yeah, and you want to switch your outmask component to inverted alpha. And as soon as you'll do that, in fact, I'll go back to my source as well. Final result. So yeah, everything around the image is gone. So if I hit B on the roto alpha, you'll notice that the stuff on the outside of the box shows up. For instance, this particular object here, probably a studio light or something. So now that we've successfully done that,
sir, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
सवाल ये है कि सर मास्किंग और रोटोस्कोपिंग में भी फर्क क्या हुआ? बिकॉज़ ये काम तो हम मास्किंग से भी कर सकते हैं.
See, it's just that Nuke has a different way of saying things. Like an import is read, a mask is roto. So that's the only difference. They serve the same function. It's just that the way we work in the two software is different. Like After Effects is layer based and Nuke is node based. Besides that, pretty much all the functions are the same. They just have different names. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So even when you're exporting a file, it's known as a write node, like you're writing a file. So yeah, don't worry about the names too much. Just know that if you know After Effects, all you got to worry about is getting a hang of this new interface, the node-based interface. Everything else is pretty much the same. Whatever principles you apply in After Effects, apply in Nuke as well. Like shadow, lights, highlights, all those visual depth cues that we studied. Fog क्या होता है, texture क्या होता है, detail क्या होती है, shadow क्या होता है, occlusion क्या होती है. All those things that give you like an understanding of basic reality and how we perceive it, we kind of replicate that in our work and whatever software we're using, whether it be Nuke or After Effects. So anyway, now that we've got that, we can start working on the quality of our key light here. So for that, I'm just going to add a random checkerboard maybe. Yeah, I'll add a checkerboard node. I hit tab on the keyboard, typed in checkerboard. You can see it right there in the beginning. And I'll just add another node here, which is a very important node. It's known as the merge node. This merge node is used to put two shots together in a single shot. So yeah, and you want to make sure that whatever is in front of the shot is attached to the A arrow, and whatever is behind the imagery is attached to the B arrow. You'll see this now. So if I connect this merge node to this arrow right here between my key light and before it goes into the viewer, because you want to make sure that you've got the right order, which is, for now, we read footage, we view its metadata, we add a key light, the key light gets input from the roto alpha to cancel out everything outside of the roto mask here, and then it goes into the merge node to be merged with this checkerboard that we brought in. So we're going to connect it like that. Oh yeah, I flipped it. You're supposed to have the top image on A and the image that's in the background on B. So now I can see the girl a little better, okay? But one more thing you want to do is, yeah, I can see that there's a lot of transparency in the girl. So I'm going to go back into my key light and hit screen matte and start working on the transparency. It's probably not the transparency because I can see that it's pure white here. It just might be the way the merge node has applied itself here. So yeah, it's right now it's on over. You want to make sure that it's up top. Yeah, it just might just be the key light. So let's work on the key light first. And once we've got that, we can start seeing what's going on with the rest of the image. So go back into key light, go into screen matte. So now we're in our screen matte. which gives us our values in grayscale for the amount of keying that it needs to do for that particular part of the image. So now that we have that, I can see a lot of grays around the girl, or a lot of ghostly effect here. Like this gray here is going to make her transparent. A lot of this gray here, we want to get rid of that. So let's move around the sliders, get the best settings possible. Okay, this was fine, I guess. This is fine for now. And you want to open up its further settings by hitting this little screen mat drop-down menu here in the same effect in the key light node. And I can start working with these sliders. Clipping white means how much of the white do you want to bring into the frame, how much of the black you want to bring into the frame. Clipping row, how much of the original clip do you want to kind of blend in with your key light. Screen dilate is how much of the edges do you want to shrink or grow. It's shrink and grow in After Effects. Screen softness is how much of softness do you want your edges to have. Screen deposit black, if you want to deposit some black in there, like we just did right now, and it got rid of the dark areas there. And yeah, you want to make sure that your screen replace method is on source. You don't want to have it on a blended method like hard color or soft color, because it's never going to give you a pure image. If you do it on source, then in your final result, you won't get the ghosting that you were before. Like if I were to switch this to hard color or soft color, you can see now it's kind of softening up the color and giving it this weird transparent look that we don't want. If I go for soft color, I think this is good. Soft color is fine. It kind of worked well for us for now. It didn't last night for me, but then again, you have to get the right values down. It's all trial and error, basically, key lighting. Get the right value down and everything. So now that we have that, I think it's okay for now. What we want to do is, now you've probably noticed one thing is that throughout the timeline, our girl does not stay in one place. She keeps moving about the area. So accordingly, we have to move the mask around with her. We have to have the mask keep up wherever the girl's moving in the frame. So for that, you select your mask node again, and you can drag a marquee of sorts around your mask and select those 4 points to get the rectangle. And you can even see it here. You can even rename your rectangle to whatever you want. I think you could rename it to, I'll call it mask, so you know what it is. And once you've got, like, when it gets really, really complex and you've got a lot of masks going on, then it really helps to rename them. So yeah, now that I have my rectangle selected, I want to hit a key here. So you can see that there's frames here, and then there's like icons representing keyframes and stuff to do with them. So here is a key with a plus sign, which means add a keyframe there. The one with the minus means remove a keyframe from there. So I'll add a keyframe to our current point in the timeline. And I'm just going to start working backwards. And there's a really neat way of, hold on, I'll show you. Let me just jump through the frames right here. Yeah. Then you can tell, as soon as your little, this frame counter arrow thingy right here that's moving about, as soon as it turns blue, you know there's a key there. Like I've got a key on 42 now. And then everything else goes yellow. So there's my key. I found it at 42. And now I want to jump a few frames in reverse so I can start covering the area in those few frames. And there's a really neat way of doing that, a really quick way of doing that in Nuke, where you can add the number of frames here. And based on that, you can jump those number of frames around the timeline. For example, if I want to jump 10 frames around, it's 10 by default. If I want to jump 5 frames around, I hit 5 in there. And I can then start jumping 5 frames around the timeline like that. So I can be very precise with how I work, adding my keyframes and stuff. So I'm back at frame 42, which is my first keyframe that I added. And I'm going to jump 5 frames back here, adjust the mask, make sure the girl does not get cropped. 5 frames back again. Things okay for now. I'll just add a quick key here. In case there's no movement in the mask, you might want to add a key there so that it sticks in place. So yeah, keep going back like that. Adjust the mask. This is a fairly simple footage to work with. There's not much going on. So yeah, it should be all right for us. So now I'm gonna start jumping forwards 5 frames. Yeah, I can see that her foot here might get cropped, and I want to resize my rectangle on the go as well. So I'll resize it because the girl kind of walks towards the camera by the end of the shot. So I have to increase the size of the rectangle to contain her accordingly. All right, let me just resize this. All right. Jump 5 frames, another 5 frames, move the rectangle, 5 more frames. And now I'm just going to start jumping 10 frames, okay? Because the rectangle's gotten quite wide now, so it gives me a lot of room. And just to be sure, I'm going to increase the size of the rectangle a little more because she's gotten really close to the camera now. And you can see that our leg's getting cropped there. And I'm going to stretch up the rectangle a little. And now it should be okay for the rest of the frames. So make sure you make those minor adjustments. And we're almost at the last frame, so I'll just hit 163 here. So I'm exactly on that point in my timeline and apply my last key. So now, hopefully, we have our rectangle. Yeah, I could jump from keyframe to keyframe as well using this button here, this arrow with the key on it, so I can go from each keyframe on the timeline and see if everything's going okay. So everything seems to be going all right. My mask is moving along with the girl. So now that we have that, we can start bringing in the actual background that we want. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this checkerboard. And instead of the checkerboard being merged with, and I'm also going to get rid of this little arrow here because I don't need to view it separately, this image. In fact, I do need to view it separately. So I'm just going to add that option there. Hit one of the keyboard to bring your original, to bring your actual image back that you're working on. So anyway, I'm just going to take this B arrow from the merge node and select the background image here. Now you've probably noticed something. You've noticed that the resolution has gone all off. In fact, it's assumed the size of the biggest resolution between those two images, which is this image right here, the background at 1920 and 1200. Now we want to reformat that to our actual resolution of the footage. For that, we're going to add a reformat node right after this background node that we've got. So reformat. And it automatically reformatted it. Otherwise, you would have to go in there and find the right resolution. It's the first resolution to begin with, so yeah, it worked out. So we just reformatted the image, and it looks something like this. And now I'm still not convinced because the image is too, the background seems a little too small compared to the girl. It's not at the right scale as it should be. So right after the reformat node, I'm going to add a little transform node, which is going to give me the ability to scale, rotate, and move the image around as I please. So I'm going to go into that transform node, and yeah, it's on the background. So I'm moving the background basically, and I'm going to try to scale it up, scale up the background. I can do it from here as well. There's a scale slider here that I can work on and get something like this going. Okay, I'm going to go back to my first frame, see where she starts. She starts somewhere around here. And yeah, probably move the image up a little. And let's see where she walks. Of course, the perspective on the background isn't perfectly aligned to that of our original shot. But this should probably do for now. Anyway, so we've got that going, and what you want to do now is you want to make sure you go back into merge and make sure it's set to a top so they don't blend into each other. In fact, I'm going to leave it at over for now. Let's see the kind of results we get. So anyway, now that I've got these two images together, I want to go in and start cleaning them up, which is matching them together. Now, there's a few tricks you can do. By the way, I can see this weird halo around her. Right after I apply my image to it, I can see the flaws in my keying more prominently because of this background. Because this background is kind of low contrast, so I can see the girl's edges better. So now I'm probably gonna add a little bit of dilate into the key light. Go back into the key light node and start dilating in the negative like that, so I can get the edges to kind of trim down Again, all these changes we're making are very, very subtle. And yeah, subtlety is the way to go in visual effects, especially if you really want to make the imagery seem convincing. I'm going to leave it at -1. Yep, and I'm going to add a bit of screen softness of 0.2 in there. Just a bit of screen softness so the edges don't seem as sharp, as she doesn't seem like a cardboard cutout or something. So that's a little better. That's a cleaner image for now. So anyway, now that we have that, we want to match our background to our actual footage, which is this girl right here against the green screen background that we keyed out. So for that, I'm going to add a little grade node, but I'm going to do that before I go into my merge node. I want to color correct the girl first before she ends up in the merge node combining with the rest of the background. Like I told you guys already, you need to be wary of the order of nodes you're going in. So right after my key light node, I am going to add a grade node. Is a basic grading of your imagery. And there's a black point and a white point. Now, these are very important. Now, these determine the kind of color temperature or the kind of color tone different points, different areas in the image have. For example, the midtones have a certain tone to them. The highlights have a certain different tone. Shadows could have a completely different tone altogether depending on your aesthetic. So we could work on that. But for now, we want to match the girl to the background instead of the other way around. We're not going to match the background to the girl. We're going to match the girl to the background because the background is a little more interesting to match her up against. So what we're going to do now is we're going to select the black point. So I just click there. And I'm going to hit 2 on the keyboard so that I can get just that single image that we need here. Okay. If I'm going to go in and color correct the image a little. Before I even go and grade this, I might have to go and color correct the image so that we can get rid of this weird diffuse of sorts around the image. I want the color in my image to pop out a little more because right now it's too low contrast. So I'm just going to add a little color correct node to my background, to these background nodes that I have. By the way, you can add a bunch of sticky notes and stuff in there. For example, I can add a little, what's it called? Hold on, let me check it out here. It should be out here. I go here. On the left, I'll be able to find that node that I'm looking for. Yeah, okay. It's called a backdrop. Okay, it's a backdrop node. You can hit tab and bring in a backdrop node. And this is like a container for your nodes. It's like making a hierarchy of sorts. And remember making hierarchies in Maya, grouping things together. This is almost like grouping things together. For example, in this backdrop node, I can rename it to background, so everything to do with my background. And I'll take these nodes that have to do with my background and drop them into the background box container or whatever you want to call it. It's called a backdrop in Nuke. And you'll notice that anything that's contained within that box will be moving around with that background. You see that? So I've kind of grouped them together. So I don't have to individually select them. I can just select the box they're contained in and move that around instead. So now I'm going to start adding more. Yeah, I'm going to go and color correct this thing. So let's see. Let's first work on the master effect here. So I'm just going to turn up the saturation just a bit. Not too much. Again, subtlety is the key. So I'm just going to turn this to 1.25. Not too much. That's too much, actually. So 0. We'll read that and see how things are turning out. All right, that's 1.025. That is just enough. That's just enough contrast in there for the overall image, and to give us a slight variation in the color temperature that we can work on when we put in the shots together, because you need like a mutual point of source between the two images, either it be the same lighting, the same effects, or something else that makes it match better. So yeah, contrast, probably gonna decrease that just a bit because we just increased the saturation on it. I'll leave it at 0.95, and I want a gain. Do I want a gain on that? If I gain it, it just adds the values of the images like that, but then you start, the colors start getting blown up after a while. If I can decrease that a bit. Yeah, I think I might have to put it at 0.9 and increase the gamma on the image overall. Maybe not even the gamma. Okay, let's move on to the shadows and see how dark we can make the shadows here. So if I go into shadows, turn down the gain, it makes the shadows darker. Okay? It creates more of a contrast between my light areas and my dark areas. So I'll leave my gain at 0.25, and that kind of matches a little better to the darks and lights of my actor here. So that should be okay for shadows. I'm not going to worry about the midtones for now because I need the midtones to be sort of in the middle area. And I'm going to work on the highlights now, which should be just as, if not more than, blown out as this light right here, but still too blown out. Maybe some area around here is a good reference point for me to light the girl in that way. So I'm going to go in and increase the gamma on my oh yeah, very subtle difference. I'm not sure if you guys can tell, but as soon as I pull the slider on the gamma up, it kind of, hold on, maybe this area right here would be more prominent in its change. See that? It dulls up the lights. I don't want that. I don't want to dull up the lights. I want to kind of gain it up a little. Add a little bit of gain there. See that? How bright the highlights get? Do you see? Notice here this panel here? I'm working on the highlights alone right now. So that's the only thing that's being affected in this image. So as I decrease it, if I don't want to decrease it all the way down so you can see these black spots, right now it's picked up on the highlights in the image. And that's what we're going to be working on. So if I bring it back to 1 and increase that just a bit, maybe 1.5 is better. So that gives us a much more compelling imagery to work with. And it kind of blends the girl better as well because she's got the same kind of lighting. But one more thing I'll do is another neat little trick I'll show you guys is where I turn things to black and white just to figure out the intensity of each kind of tone in the image, like highlight, midtones, and the bright areas or the shadows. So I'll just turn everything to black and white right after we merge it. So yeah, I'm going to zoom in on my nodes again. Right after the merge node, by the way, you can zoom in on whatever node you want to focus in on by selecting that node and hitting F, just like we do in Maya. Maya में भी यही होता है ना, we select an object, hit F to zoom in on it. इसमें भी ऐसा ही है. ठीक है? So now that we have all of that, I can start working on matching the girl to the background now. So what I want to do now is I want to go in. I'm not even going to add a black and white node yet. I'll do that in the end. So what I want to do right now is I want to make sure that the lighting around the background is the same as the lighting on the girl, or the lighting around the background should be cast onto the girl. So for that, I have a grade node added here. Remember, we were trying to pick black points and white points. Now I want to pick black and white points from the source, from this footage right here, okay, that we've got. But since it's all being merged into each other anyway, I can just go directly into my first view and start working. All right. One more thing you might want to do is, in case you see too many controls as you're working in the scene, you can kind of select all those controls and hit this little X button here, right underneath the properties tab here. You'll see this little X. I think there's like bars stacked on each other with a little X on it. If you hit that, you can get rid of all the controls that you've selected. And this little red area, the selection area that's left behind, you can get rid of that by holding Control Shift and just clicking once on this dark area around your image. This negative space here. Okay, so now we can see the image better. So this is what we have for now. And already you can see that it's starting to blend a little better than what we had before. So what we're going to do now is go back into grade and blend it further, all right? For that, we're going to go into the grade node that we have added to the footage that gets keylit and then roto alpha, and then eventually goes into this grade node before it goes into the merge node to merge with the rest of the image. So I'm going to go back to the grade node and I'm going to select the black point here. And in my background image that I'm trying to match my character to, I'm going to find a good dark spot, a spot in the imagery that represents the best tone of darkness. So probably not that, because I don't want the dark in there. I want the darks in this area right here because this is what's going to be lighting her. So maybe if I choose this spot right here, seems right enough, and you want to hold Control Shift, and you want to drag out the image, and make sure you select a significant amount of tones in there to represent the best average of the darkness in the area. And already you'll be able to tell that, you see that? If I disable that grade, you can see the difference, how it matched girl there. In fact, I'm going to find a better area to pick. I'm going to find a slightly better area to pick. So maybe add a bit of this. I'm getting a lot of darkness for the other kind of materials as well. I'm getting darkness for the metal and the door. So that kind of should give me a good average. And yeah. Maybe make a smaller selection. Right here. Might just be me, but I think that's how it's supposed to look. So anyway, now that we have that, I'm gonna go and select a white point for the image as well. A white point should be, make sure you don't get a part of the image that's too blown out. Now this is too blown out. You wanna get a part that's well lit, probably the most lit out of all of them. So I think this is a good point of reference. There we go. Uh-oh, that's way too bad. I want to make sure I pick this. All right, you want to make sure you turn the black clamp thing off, okay? This black clamp kind of thing, it kind of does not put your image the way it's supposed to be. A white point. All right, I'm going to add another grade node and kind of inverse the settings in that. And yeah, here I want to reverse this, and I want to get the darks and the lights again. At this point is where I got the dark from. I'm not going to select a range. I'm just going to take a point in the scene by hitting Control instead of Control Shift. And now for the white point, it was this. And yeah, there we go. So you can see how she matches up better now. The lighting around her, if I were to disable, that's one node. I think I'll just, yeah. You see the difference in the image? I think this one's better. So I'm just going to get rid of the first node. And yeah, do you see the difference in the two images? Like here, you can see that her skin tone isn't matching up to the rest of the image. So if I were to zoom in like that, it's a 1-to-1 ratio, right? Okay. And if I bring back the grade up, you'll see how the skin tone starts matching and everything else also starts matching. And I would want that other grade to be back in. So I'm just going to Control D, hit D there. That grade does that. And I'm just going to pick the white point all over again for this one. This time around, I'm going to select the range again. And that gives me a much better overall image. Yeah. And I can just go into my color correct for the background again. Maybe you can put the contrast. I want to make the shadows a little darker, I guess. Yeah. At the 0.15 is okay. So that's what it was. All right, so yeah, this is what we have. Let's bring the girl a little closer in our scene. Okay, now that I know that I've got the lighting matched up, you can even see right here. Pretty all right, actually. The edges here are really bad. We can work on the keying for now. So let's go in and see what we can do about the edges. That's our screen mat, and that's our final result. I know that I want to cut down on the softness a bit. Make sure the edges a little. Uh-oh. You guys still see? I think my Nuke just crashed. You guys still there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry about that. My Nuke crashed.
Yes,
Like I
sir.
told you guys, my PC isn't that great. Anyway, I'll launch it again. Bear with me for another minute. I think we lost. I think we lost everything we did so far. Well, let's hope not. Let's hope Nuke's autosave system saves us. And I don't think it did. Any good thing I had it done before already, so I'll just open up that. Let's open up the same session and see how far we were. Nah, nowhere near to where we were. Or are we? Oh yeah, I think it's saved. I've been hitting Control S obsessively, so I think it's saved. All right, good for us. Okay, we're back where we left off. So this is the final imagery that we've got here. Everything already seems to match up, except for these edges right here. I can see these white lines around the edges not keyed out as perfectly. And I want to go into my source. I don't want to go into my source because there's too much of the green spill. I would want to leave it as soft color so it blends in with the rest of the imagery. So I want to get rid of these white lines around. So I'm just going to add a bit of screen dialer in the negative. So that's minus 1.5. Got that back even more, minus 2. That's better. And I want to bring back some of the sharpness on my edges. I'll leave that to 0.1. We have that now, and anything else spilling around? Much, so minus 2.3. Yeah, that seems a little better. That kind of assumes her form better than before. That's where she turns her head. The subtlety of her face needs to retain. Yeah, maybe cut back on the dilation a little. Two 2.3 should be okay. So we have that now, all right? And now I'm gonna do some final touch-ups to the imagery, which is one more thing I wanna do is I wanna add a little light wrap node. It's a really cool node that can pick up different intensities off the background and project them onto whatever image you want to. So it kind of helps merge it better to the lighting of the environment that you're trying to place your characters in. So right after my grading node, before my merge node, I'm gonna add a, what was it? A light wrap node. So what this light wrap node needs is, first of all, the A footage that it wants to apply the light wrap to, and the B footage where it's gonna collect the light samples from, which is this background image right here. In fact, not even that one, the color corrected one. So I'm gonna take this light wrap B here and apply that to the color correct. So whatever result we get in this node will be going into the light wrap node as the input values to be applied to our final image. So I did that, and if I disable the light wrap node, you'll notice there's not much of a difference. Very subtle difference there that you can't really tell from your screens at home. I can though from here. So, but I still want to make it a little more prominent. So I'm going to go here, start messing around with these sliders. So there's a diffuse and an intensity one. I'm going to turn my intensity to 1. And let's see. Yeah, it's taken effect. You can see around her leg area, it's taken effect. So you're getting a little bit of glare from the background around her edges. And I'm going to increase the intensity on that a bit. So now it's gotten too prominent and it's not looking that great, but you can already tell that this is a very nifty way of blending the edges of your character to the lighting of the background. So not too much, probably too much. 1.5. The diffuse to 1.5, intensity. And let's see. Yeah, very subtle blurring of the edges around the brighter areas of the image. In fact, it'll be probably more prominent around this area if she moves over there. And yeah, see around her arm area and stuff, kind of just helps consolidate the scene a little better. I'm not sure if you guys could notice. I could totally notice it though. You see this highlight right here? This is what we're working with basically. So these are the values I had that are being worked into my image, and I'm going to cut back on the diffuser. Intensity should be back on, and again I can already tell her face is kind of, the edges need to be a little sharper, and go back to my key light, go into screen matte, and started off with sort of like the wrong values here. And about this gray area. In this area, I'll have to start over if I want to get that perfect. Anyway, so we've got this going, and eventually, yeah, you'll get down to an imagery that works. Now I'll add the final touches, which is turn everything to black and white. So I'll add a color correct node after everything merges. And I'll turn my saturation, master saturation all the way down to make it black and white. And now you'll be able to better see the light intensity of everything around your image. So already I can tell that the girl needs to have greater highlights compared to the background. So I'll start adding, I'll add a color correct node right after I'm done grading my image. So this color correct node is gonna deal with working on the intensity of the highlights. So right here, I'm gonna keep both of these in view and start working on the girl's highlights. So here's highlights, and I'm just gonna increase the gain on it. I'm not sure if you can tell the difference. Maybe increase a little bit again. Not sure much of a difference there. Hold on. Let me try the master gain. Oh yeah, that works better. So yeah, already tell. Very subtle difference. In fact, I'm going to turn the gain down to 2.5. Very subtle differences that can really help blend your image better. Actually more. 1.2 is just enough of a difference to bring her together with the background. So we have that now. And now I want to work on the highlights and see what I can do about those. So if I offset highlights. You really have to stick your eyes to the screen to see how things are changing compared to what we had last time. So yeah, just right here, it's probably again a key light issue that we're gonna have to go in and increase the softness by maybe 0.125. Yeah, that makes it better. Then again, your overall image is this, and right here in black and white, I can tell that everything is sort of coming together well. So if it's coming together well in black and white, I would still want a little more brightness around her face area right here. Maybe if I increase the gain a little more. 5. Maybe in my midtones. Yeah. Increase the gain on my midtone just a bit, not too much. And yeah, in fact, I'm gonna have to cut back on the gain here. And oops, it's all the way down. Okay, now I want to first work on the midtones, make sure my midtones are lit the way the background is lit. So I think that's my gain. So I think I had it at 1.25 here. This one's at 1.25, and increase the overall brightness on her. And the midtone had 1.1. Yeah, that makes it better. So I'll turn the gain up to 1.6 like that, and the master gain to 1.25. 1.25, 1.6. All right. I think it got a little too bright in certain areas, so maybe 1.5 in your midtone gain, 1.2. The other one should help. Yeah, that found a better middle ground, but then again, you can see that the background needs to be worked on. Background isn't as high res anymore because we blew up the image. We scaled the image from its we scaled the image up because we wanted to get the proportions and everything right of the environment compared to the characters. So we obviously the resolution kind of messed up. It got pixelated because we increased the scale on the image. So for that, I'll just add a little bit of a blur to our background image, a blur node. Make sure it's contained within that same square thingy that I've created to contain all my background nodes in. So I'm going to go and blur and just zoom in and maybe have some of the girl in view. And maybe blur up the background just a bit, just a tiny bit, so that it doesn't seem as pixelated as girl here. Now it feels much better. Feels much better here. One more thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in some atmospherics in here. For that, I'm going to add a read node, and I'm going to read a little fog picture in here, a fog transparent picture. So that's my fog PNG right there. And right after everything is done merging into whatever we need it to, I'm going to bring the square a little closer here. I'm going to take this and have another merge node going. This color correct node right here, we only applied because we wanted to turn this to black and white. So this is the image that we get in the end. Again, the intensity might be a little too strong on the girl now that I've turned it to color. So maybe I can go in and decrease her midtones just a bit, just a tiny bit, maybe from 1.5 to 1.3. That's much better. Oops, okay, that's much better. All right, now what we want to do is we want to add a little bit of a fog, something like a fog or something. Let's just make the background dark, so a little darker because I can see that it needs to blend around her feet area better. I'm going to go back in and for the correct node, increase the shadows by, increase the contrast maybe in the shadows. Too much. One point four. Less. 1.25 should be okay. Okay, so now that we have that, highlights on the girl seem alright. Around the leg area. Maybe the light wrap node could play an effect here. Just a very subtle light wrap node you can see right here somewhere. We just 25, if she goes back here. Yeah, that just blends her much better in here. Head area though is again a key light thingy. Usually if something like this happens, you have to key light differently at this point in the timeline, and then you have to gradually change the key lighting as you see fit throughout the frames. But for now, we're just going to leave it at this little average here. So yeah, now that we have that, I think it blends in much better. I can go in and start adding some more stuff in there. Like maybe I want to decrease the contrast on the girl, the overall contrast on the girl just a bit. So the master saturation, probably just lower it just a bit. And maybe decrease the master camera. Not too much. 0.9. Right. That's much better. Again, if these subtle changes you make that, bring your image closer and closer and closer to what you want it to look like, then I would just want it to be a little less yellow right here. So I'm just going to add one more color correct node just for decreasing the saturation on her midtone. Very subtle decrease. Like I went from 1, the intensity of 1 to 0.9. Like you have to get down to like actual very, very minute decimal points. So yeah, now that we have that, remember I brought the fog in. Now I'm going to attach the fog to the rest of the image. So I'm just going to add a merge node again. And this has to do with my final fog that I'll be adding. This time around, I'm going to flip the A and B arrows. I'm going to have my B arrow go into my footage that I'm working on, and the A arrow to my fog, because I want the fog to be on top of the rest of my image. So right off the bat, you can see that it's not really that great. So I'll have to add a couple of nodes to make this work. By the way, if you hold Control on your keyboard while you're in your node space, you can see these little dots that show up in these arrows. What you can do with these dots is you can arrange the arrows as you want to make your scene seem a little neater, a little more. It gives more clarity to where each node is going, instead of all these arrows jumbling up in each other. So, for instance, I can take these ones, take all this up here, take these arrows and arrange them neatly like that. So this way, I can tell what's going on. I can see now more clearly that this blur goes into the light wrap as well, and also goes into merging with itself. And then this color correct is disabled. It was only there to make everything black and white, and goes eventually into this merge, which is the fog that we're going to be working on. So I'm going to add a little blur there, increase the blur on it so the fog is as smooth as I can make it, like that. And right before the blur, I want to add a little transform node. In fact, I'm going to do that after the blur. Doesn't really matter. Transform. So now that we have that, I can start moving around this fog thingy. and cut back on, if you go to the merge node, there's a blend value. How much of the image do you want to blend? So I'm just going to decrease that. Add a very subtle fog effect to the scene, and maybe change its blending style, which is a blending mode in After Effects or whatever, to something else. Maybe let's try the kind of different blending modes we can get. Basically helps further put your scene, put your things together, all your elements together in one place. And geometric seems to work really good. For some reason, this mathematical function right here to blend these values is working nicely here with what we've done. And it's very subtle, as I'll show you just now. If I disable the node, very subtle. And okay, let's go back to the merge, bring some of that in. All right. I like it. Okay, obviously the background isn't as high res as we wanted it to, but we can add a bit of sharpen to it. So if I go back into the background, right after blurring it to make it a little smoother, I might want to bring some of the sharpness back in. So I'll just add a sharpen node right after my blur node, and increase some of the sharpness in the background. .001. And maybe color correct this to increase some of the contrast in my image. 1.15. All right, this is a much better blend of our visuals. And let's full screen this. And let's get a quick render of this and see what we've got. In fact, I'm going to go in and see what we can do with these the fog effect that we got going here. It doesn't seem to be making much of a difference. Oh yeah, it does make much of it, actually. Let's put everything together really well into even lighting, even proportional lighting. So now that we have that, maybe a final touch-up right at the end, a grade node. And this grade node is going to help us kind of figure out the whites and black points and how you want the final image to turn up. So my black point would probably cut itself down to minus 0.1. Or even less, minus 0.005. 0.05. Mm, 2.5. Or 0.25. 0.3. Oh, let me bring it back to 0. Increase this, and I'm gonna mess around with this lighter a bit. Yeah, that seems alright. And also play around with the white point. Yeah, that seems much better. Bring the white down to 0.95. A very subtle overall, it just averages the light better. It's a good average for the lighting. Very subtle, very subtle. If I zoom in around the girl area, there's a very subtle suppression of the whiteness. You know how there's a bad white balance there? It kind of suppresses the whiteness in your image better. You can see there's like white haze around your image. It just helps it. Yeah, it puts things together much better. So yeah, guys, this is it. This is what you have to do for your final assignment, is get some sort of imagery like this working on. Of course, we're not going to get into CG compositing and all that stuff because, yeah, you guys don't have systems or systems that actually have the kind of specifications that you need to work at that level of compositing. So this is all that you'll be working on, is find a green screen footage, preferably the same one I've used. YouTube पे मिल जाएगा तुम लोग को. If not, I'll share the link with you. And find a clip in there. In fact, I'll show you the clip right now. There's a bunch of shots in there. Here's the footage. If you guys want, I can share it on WhatsApp. I can share the YouTube link with you. इसके अंदर 3-4 clips हैं of the same scene. So if you want, you can even work on multiple shots for the same scene. But I wouldn't advise you guys to do that. Just work on the one shot and make it as good as you can. So this was the shot that we started with. And what we're going to do is let's get a quick render of this, okay? So you guys know how to render this as well. So now that we're pleased with our results, we can go in and add a write node before everything goes into the viewer. And this write node is what's going to help us write the image sequences. So once you've got the write node in, you want to specify the file destination. So I'm just going to make a new folder here. I'll make another new folder here. Call this out2. And there's a certain naming convention you guys might want to follow, especially if it's an image sequence you're going for. It's supposed to go something like whatever the name or title of your file is. Add an underscore, preferably, and make sure you've got these hashes in there, okay? Because these represent the frame numbering, how many digits it's going to use to number each frame. Like if I've got 4 hashes, it's going to go like 0001, 0002, 0003. So it's like frame padding. And make sure you have your format specified as well. In my case, I'm probably going to go for a JPEG so that it's faster. And if it recognizes the format out of the list of formats it has, then it'll automatically switch it to the format that you typed in. And you can change your quality options here. I'm going to leave it at 0.75 of total quality. If you keep it at 1, it's at full quality. So 0.75 is, I think, 2/3 of the quality or something. Anyway, so I'm going to render this and make sure you hit global in there so it takes in all the frames to render. Hold on here. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm at the right. That's frame 1. All right. So that's set from 1 to 163. All right. So if I hit enter render now, global says 1 to 163, which is perfect. And that's the output going into the out2 folder that it's going to create with this naming convention. And yeah, everything seems to be fine. So let's hit OK and wait for it to render. And it usually doesn't take very long to render. It depends on how much of the effects you've got in your project. If you've got too many of them, then obviously it's going to take its time. Since we don't have much going on in our compositing right here, this is like very, very basic compositing, slapping footage in there, adding a background to it, keying it out. All this stuff is very basic, so it shouldn't take too long for us to render 163 frames. It should take 2 minutes. So let's wait for this, and then we can put the image together in an editing software and see how it all looks in movement. By the way, how are the rest of your classes going? वो कैसे कर रहे हो तुम लोग?
क्लासेस हो रही हैं बस.
क्या हो रहा है?
सही जा रही हैं, I think.
What about the practical ones? Practical वाली तो बिल्कुल ही weak हो
So
गई है,
practical
right?
की classes हो नहीं रही हैं. Like music video है और कैमरा की वैसी नहीं हो रही, सिर्फ submissions होती हैं assignments की. और म्यूजिक वीडियो में सर ने सिर्फ पूछा था हमसे कि आपको कोई इश्यूज वगैरह आ रहे हैं, कोई कंफ्यूजन है तो बता दें बस.
Right. So you guys shoot at home basically.
Sorry?
You guys shoot your stuff at home. ऐसा ही है ना? You're
No, sir.
We can't shoot because well, we don't have cameras. Like most of us don't have cameras.
You've got your phones है ना? Phone के अंदर तो camera है ना?
नहीं सर, हमें शूटिंग की असाइनमेंट्स नहीं दी जा रही, हमें लाइक राइटअप्स दिए जा रहे हैं.
Right.
Maybe like presentations and write-ups. That's all we're doing right now.
Okay. Because I think Sir Tosif was telling me the other day that they might have you guys start shooting on your own phones and stuff for the time being. कि घर पे तो कुछ बैठ के तुम लोग shoot करके कुछ निकाल लो.
But sir, as a third year in film and television, I feel like it's just not acceptable. इतना गंदा product देने का भी दिल नहीं करता.
हाँ ये भी है, true. But we don't have much of a choice here, do we?
I know. I think that's why वो हमें सिर्फ वो writing assignments ही दे रहे हैं.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, I'm going to cancel this for now. Or do you want me to just keep going with it? There's only a few frames left anyway, so these second again. Let's just go with it. I could have just canceled here. And one of the best parts about getting an image sequence out is you can cancel at whatever frame you want, and you'll get the previous frames with you. This does not happen when you're rendering a video, because any frame that goes bad when you're rendering a video file means that the whole file has gone bad. All right, so we're done now. I'm gonna go back into Vegas, which is the editing software I prefer. And yeah, I'm gonna import that image sequence in here and see how that plays. Close Nuke for now, taking up too much of my resources. And I'm gonna go on the file, import media. Out to make sure I've got image sequence checked, and 1 to 163. That's great. Okay, and it should give you the image sequence right there. There we go. I bring it into my timeline, so it just puts the image sequences there like it would a normal video clip. Okay, and I'll go back into properties and make sure my frame rate is exactly the same. Yep, it assumes the same settings. Even though the frame rate is something it does not really deduce from a bunch of images, you have to go in and add the frame rate. But I think I added the frame rate in there from my last file, so it's still there. Anyway, let's play this and see what it looks like in its finality. Yeah, a lot of problems here you can see already, especially the light wrap here. Again, I couldn't really see a live preview in my Nuke because it's not going to play it live, but you can see that the light wrap, you see that? The light wrap kind of helps bring the glare from the edges. Like the glare kind of pours from your edges, from the form of the character. Like here, for instance, but it's too much. It's way too much. It should have been a lot more subtle than that. Besides that, I think everything else came together pretty well. Everything else is not as bad as I expected it to turn out, given the circumstances. And yeah, besides the light wrap and a bit of the keying issues, I think everything kind of blended somewhat decent. But obviously you have to go in and further color correct this and further bring out the aesthetic you want in your image. And there's another slight problem here. This isn't a completely static footage. The girl kind of slides out of place. That's because the camera slightly moves out of place, which makes it look like the girl is sliding out of place. If this was a completely static shot, it wouldn't look as bad, but it's barely noticeable. Barely noticeable. It's only at this part right here that her footing kind of goes off the point because the camera moves. But I was going to show you guys the different shots that we've got available in this clip. All right, so we're done with this. like this one. So you can even make a whole scene out of it. In fact, this is what it's for. All these shots are in a sequence so that you can make a whole scene out of it. So it goes something like that, and there's more shots here. Again, depending on the kind of shot, you'll have to treat the image differently. And yeah. So I guess that's it for today, guys. ठीक है? समझ आया? I think we were recording this session as well. So we have, the full presentation with us online, most probably on Google Drive, that I'll share the link with you guys in like the next hour or two, because I have to go somewhere. So yeah, any questions? Anything you guys are confused about?
No, sir.
तुम लोगों ने किया हुआ है 1000 दफा ये, and this was very basic stuff. तुम लोगों ने शायद इससे मुश्किल भी किया हुआ है in class, that is.
बिल्कुल सर.
So अब तुम लोग यही कर दो, so that would be great, because this will be like a official final assignment of yours for this semester. Because there's nothing else we can do really. So yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep the software somewhere online. In fact, I'm gonna probably make a V-transfer link of it and share it with you guys. Make sure you get the software within like the 2 or 3 days before the link expires. I'm not going to keep it on Google Drive. I'm going to make a V-transfer link and share that with you guys. The clip right here, the YouTube clip, I'll share the link with you guys in a while. You can use that clip, or you can find some other green screen clip, but make sure that it's not a moving image. Okay, this time around, we're not going for a moving shot. We're going for static shots, so it's easier on us as well. So yeah.
ठीक है सर.
Okay.
Sorry? Yeah, go ahead. Bye. अच्छा ठीक है guys, but that's it for today I guess. ठीक है, तो तुम लोग अभी मैं तुम लोगों से एक document share करूँगा that will have all the details regarding your final assignment and what you need to do in there. You basically have to follow this tutorial video of mine. That's it. जो भी record पे watch the video, go through it, follow it step by step, and come up with something. ठीक है? And what you'll have to submit is your Nuke file along with whatever it is you've used, which will be the footage and the background. Those two things. That's it. Those two things and a Nuke file and your final MP4 that you will be you'll be making image sequences out of Nuke, putting them in an editing software, and then coming up with an MP4 output. ठीक है?
ठीक है सर. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
Attendance तुम लोग की ये मैं इसका एक ले लेता हूँ screenshot. Hold on. Stay here, guys. Let me just get a screenshot of all your usernames. Print screen. तो नहीं गया? All right, then अब जाएगी तो इसका भी ले लेते हैं. Print screen. Is Mohud online? I don't think Mohud came online, है ना? This is basically Mohud's job to take the attendance and everything. चलो मैं उससे बोल दूँगा. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay,
Mohud, you're here?
Bye.
Oh, okay. फिर एक काम करना, why don't you take an attendance and everything, जो भी तुम्हारा वो है, all the necessary stuff you need to do. ठीक है, इसको record में डालने के लिए क्लास को. ठीक है फिर? Thank you so much, guys. And
Thank you, sir.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
No, sir.